Punk Rock Elite, a podcast about NOFX. Hello, listeners.
I can't harmonise, but,
No,
the thought was there.
it was there. That's Red Redmond, who will not harmonise with me. I'm Eddie French, who gave Red very little to harmonise with. And this is Punk Rock Elite. We've given it away, haven't we? Early doors of what today's episode is.
I'm really looking forward to this episode.
I know, not to jump the gun, but you texted me the other day to say, can't wait for this. I have hot takes, all in capitals.
I do have hot takes.
Well,
I don't want to get
for.
into it here. This is the intro. How are you, Eddie?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, not bad at all. We are recording this the day before NOFX appear in Leeds.
Oh, man. You know what? It's just hit me as well.
Yeah.
It's the last time we'll see NOFX live.
It is. Unless, of course, this gets to them and they do a make-a-wish for two thems who aren't even ill. No, they're not going to do that. We've accepted it's basically the last one. And, that's good. That should be done with joy and happiness. I'm sure it will be quite moving. I've seen little clips from their Barcelona things. Jefe was openly crying on stage in Barcelona at the end. So,
I hadn't seen that. That's really sweet.
Yeah. He's very, very moved by it all. So, who knows? I don't want them to cry per se, but if they do, they do. So yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I spent yesterday afternoon. I was helping old bandmate Owen Brindley, who people may have heard of a long time ago from a band called Grammatics, and more pertinently Colour of Fire, who were around in the early noughties, because Colour of Fire reformed and they're doing a gig in December, and Owen managed to track down his guitar from that era that he'd sold to a fan, and that fan had sold on to someone else.
Wow.
And got it back, and the pickups needed rewiring and all this stuff, so I went round to help him with that. And his sister was around, and she said that she'd been to Temple Newsome and seen the whole setup, and it's like a full-on festival setup out there. So,
oh wow, I can't wait. Because we're going for the full day, like a full day of punk rock.
We're getting there when the car park opens, which is the coolest thing I've ever said. I'm going to be there when the car park opens, man. So, yeah, they're going to go there. We've... who we got tomorrow? We've got the Meths. We've got the Co-Defendants. We've got Comeback Kid, Lagwagon, as you say, Less Than Jake, and NOFX themselves.
I actually didn't know Descendants were on, so that's exciting.
Co-Defendants.
Oh, co-defendants, not the Descendants.
No. I would admittedly be slightly more excited for the Descendants. They have been on a couple of dates, I think, in the US.
I think aren't they oddly doing Rebellion? It's like them and Teenage Bottle Rocket are like the American punk bands on Rebellion this year.
Yeah, and that's two fine choices. Last night we got our Teenage Bottle Rocket tickets for Leeds at the end of July.
Yeah, we did. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sending me that announcement. Because I've been complaining that I haven't seen Teenage Bottle Rocket in the UK for years. They don't seem to do their own headline dates. They just appear on festivals or do tour support. I think I saw them support Dropkick Murphys in 2016 or something. So it's lovely that they are doing, proper headline shows. Oddly in Leeds, which I thought was strange, given that they're doing Slam Dunk.
Yeah, but for opposite ends of, they're doing Slam Dunk this weekend, and that's the end of May, so it's the end of July. It's 2 months away.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's Key Club, used to be Temple of Boom, in the Merrion Centre, which I haven't been to in a little while, because Temple of Boom moved to a new location called Boom now, which is proper cool, but they're probably a little bit big for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. So looking forward to it. It's yeah, I hope it's going to be as much fun. The Raging Nathans. I heard one song last night on Bandcamp and went, "Yep, that sounds fine." It was good.
They're doing support, aren't they?
Yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." Happy that it works. Yep. So, but yeah, so we're I don't know why we're talking about that when we're literally going to see NOFX tomorrow, which is so weird. I've got a job I've got to do this afternoon. I've got to go out and do one of my butch manual labour jobs, and and then tomorrow sort out all of a few things, and then jump in the car to say goodbye to NOFX, which is
it's surreal, isn't it?
It is. It's really, really strange. So that's been taking up most of my week, to be honest. Had a lot of work on, which I'm all right with, because taking a full day off to go to a half-day festival almost designed exclusively for me, you can do that. How about you? What have you been up to aside from?
Well, I have been working. So we've had a few stand-up shows at the Lead Mill where I promote events. We had Simon Brodkin last night, who is famous from being like Lee Nelson on the telly a few years ago. He's done like a lot of high-profile pranks and stuff like that.
Yes,
he's a nice guy. His crowd are very much the Britain's Got Talent crowd. That's how I describe them.
To be honest, if that's going to help keep the Lead Mill afloat, then bring him in. Absolutely.
Nice sold out show.
Good.
He was very pleasant. He got he was about 10 minutes late because he got basically got stuck in the car park of his hotel.
Oh.
Someone just parked straight across him.
Oh,
so he was
right.
About 10 minutes late, but it was quite funny.
I mean, a lot of the time, I don't know if our listeners attend stand-up comedy performances very often, but there is an old trick that is used by a lot of comedians, which is to describe an incident that happened literally on the way to this gig.
Yeah.
And it may not have happened ever.
Yeah.
It may have happened on the way to one gig, but for some reason, people think that immediacy means that it doesn't have to be quite as funny as if it's something you've clearly planned. I don't know if I'm revealing too much of the inner workings there. But if it actually did happen, then sometimes
he sent me photographic evidence.
Oh no,
it was real.
I'm not doubting him at all. And if he actually did turn up late, rather than just sat in his dressing room going, "I'll go on in 10 minutes so I can do my brilliant was late in the car park bit," no one does that. I think we've been putting this off for a little too long. Heavy petting zoo. That's what we're going to be talking about.
We are indeed. Let's get stuck in.
All right. We'll see you on the other side of the music. Heavy petting zoo. So, had you heard this album before, Red?
I had obviously heard a couple bits here and there, but no, it's not an album that I'd listened to all the way through before.
Right, and initial impressions. We'll give it the jizz, which is a bird watching term meaning general impression, size, and shape, which is the way that you go about identifying a bird. So give us the jizz, Red.
Okay, I'm going to identify that bird. I feel like punk rock's Chris Packham.
I think you just mean Chris Packham.
Right. I will admit, my first listening through this album, it was not favourable. I did not enjoy myself. I've given it a few listens since, and I've calmed down a little bit.
Oh wow! You were uncalm.
Well, and people that have listened to our podcast know we're actually, I think we're quite reasonable. I think we're quite fair with our summations of these albums. I think we've really given NOFX the benefit of the doubt in a lot of places.
Possibly more than we should have.
Possibly. Quite definitely.
Giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt there.
But there's something about this one where I've ran out of...
Oh, no.
I don't know. Like,
you've squandered your benefits already.
I think I'm just going to get this hot. I'm going to get this hot take out the way at the top.
Look, do it. It may have cooled down by the end. This is good. You don't want to keep the heat.
I think this is my least favorite NOFX album.
Okay.
And look, we've listened to them all up until this point. You know, we've listened to Liberal Animation, we've listened to Ribbed, we've listened to S&M Airlines, and I think I prefer all of those to this. And first, let me apologize to our listeners who have just bust a blood vessel from...
Yeah, because you're slagging their favorite album.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, I do understand. If this is your favorite album, I do get it. Because I think that there's a big nuance between best album and favorite album.
Oh, yeah.
And favorite albums so look, my favorite album of NOFX is Coaster, and I do not by any means think that is their best album. I listened to it at a time when I was really getting into them, and it was the first major NOFX album that like properly clicked with me. And I would imagine a lot of people have had that exact same experience with Heavy Petting Zoo. I think it was probably released at a time when they were getting into the band or at an age that they are quite nostalgic of. And I do understand that this may be people's favorite album. But I think when you compare it side by side with their other work, I don't think it is the same standard.
Right.
But fair. What do you think?
Well, I had heard it a couple of times. I have this on vinyl. I bought it a long time ago. I have the Eating Lamb variant, which is just different because of the cover art. I don't think there's any musical differences or anything like that, track listing. So I remember this as being a very slow album.
Yeah.
Even though there's plenty of fast music. It starts with Hobophobic. Yeah. Like a minute of music that could have been on Punk in Drublic. Stylistically. That would have fitted into, if you'd have taken out Punk Guy and put in Hobophobic, I don't think that would have been a drastic change. I think it would have been a bad idea because I like Punk Guy more than Hobophobic. But, they put Hobophobic in their little, 8 songs in 6 minutes, stuff like that. So there's all that kind of stuff. I have made some notes because the main thing, and this might be my hot take, I find this to be quite a forgettable album.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It is not stuck in my bonds at all. I've listened to it several times in the past few days, like several times a day. And big chunks of it don't stick.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because I've just not committed the time to it as much as I have with So Long or PID or anything like that. But it just doesn't seem to hang in there.
But then
some songs do. Some songs really stand out.
Yeah.
And there are some songs on this that I really, really like. It just, as an album, I don't think it sits particularly well. It's like a collection of, again, it's like we described another, was it White Trash we described as like a sort of a collection of songs that don't really sort of gel or flow. They're just all there.
Yeah.
But with White Trash, I think they're a better selection of songs, maybe. But
yes, yeah.
Because you've got, I mean, the thing is that for me, actually, surprisingly, and I don't know why I do this, but it's until the 5th song, there's not a skipper on it for me.
Okay, yeah.
Hot Dog in a Hallway. It's, do you know what I mean? Yeah, because I've spoken about it before. Do you get what I mean now? It's kind of slow and not very also the guitars are like super heavy on this.
My first take,
proper chuggy, super thick.
From listening to Hot Dog in a Hallway, that opening riff, like that is a Stone Temple Pilots riff.
Yeah.
Like like it. I don't know. Like it feels so Alice in Chains almost. Like it doesn't. And I can't think of something from NoFX's back catalogue that's in that vein. Maybe something off of Ribbed, maybe. You know, like there's like a couple of songs on Ribbed that almost sound like Kiss songs. Like they start like really riffy.
Oh, there's one with the there's one it's got that sort of Kiss drum beat.
Yeah.
Sounds like the beginning of Detroit Rock City or something.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I found that kind of fun and exciting with the sort of very slow songs on this. I sort of like, I mean, Freedom Like a Shopping Cart is slow, but it sort of builds and there's something going on in there.
It's interesting, Freedom Like a Shopping Cart. I kind of feel like they've done that song since, but better. There's something like quite familiar about that song, but also nothing in it that really stands out, which I know you've said about a lot of these songs don't really stick in your head. And I completely agree. I don't think it's got the hooks of previous NoFX work. And I think this is really strange to have off the back of Punk in Drublic, where they just got it so right.
It is weird, yeah. I mean, like Filthy Phil Philanthropist, very scarry. It's got the trumpet in there. It's got that little glockenspiely thing, like the little blocks and stuff. And so when this album starts off, and it starts off with Homophobic, 1,000 miles an hour, and then it starts off, and then it carries on with the sort of the scarry Filthy Phil and all that stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, so we've got a sort of a fast and catchy album here. And then it sort of slows down a bit for Freedom Like a Shopping Cart. And you go, okay, well, we got something, Bleeding Heart Disease. I really like the harmonies on that. I think I really like Bleeding Heart Disease, actually. I think that's really, really good. And then bloody Hot Dog in a Hallway.
Well, so I also want to start with like the first track as well. I feel like, so it really hit me when I was listening to it first time round. Every single NoFX album up to this point has started with such a good track. Even like Animal Liberation starts with Day to Days, which, is a great song. And I find it so weird that we're starting this album with Homophobic.
That's a very good point that I hadn't considered that, but you're absolutely correct.
Because their opening tracks are normally some of, not necessarily but one of the best tracks on the album.
And yes, they start strong.
It's one of the worst in my opinion.
And this one is just a sort of a pun.
Yeah,
that's all it really is. I mean, I like the I like the big harmonies on it. But yeah, that's a middle of the album somewhere. That's what you do if you put a song like Eat the Meek on it or something. That's the one you put straight after it to sort of lift it back up a little. Because Eat the Meek is sort of quite a sort of, it's a serious song. It's done in a serious way. It's, there's no little wink at the camera or anything. And so to wash the taste of sincerity out of one's mouth, as NoFX I want to do, you put a silly thing about how, oh, well, if someone is hobophobic, they're afraid of the unhoused. So you got a funny joke about homeless people. So.
And then, like, the lyrics are kind of unclear. Where, like, are they doing it at face value?
I doubt it.
But they also don't seem to be like making fun of people who are scared of homeless people.
The chorus bit does say "Let them be."
It does, yeah. But that's then like the only line.
But I can't tell what is said after "Let them be." Let them be horrible and frightening. I don't know what they're saying.
It's "Let them be," but not around me.
Oh right, yeah.
So it like immediately undercuts.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't catch that. I don't know. It probably isn't. I can't imagine that people who grew up in the 80s punk scene found the idea of people living on the streets to be particularly offensive. Also, Fat Mike did write Home Street Home, the musical about homeless punks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing it's a character song.
Yeah, sure. It does feel a little bit vegetarian mumbo jumbo to me.
I don't get that personally, but fair enough. That's not the vibe I get. I think he's just running with what if someone was literally hobophobic. Or it could have been someone he met. He might have met someone who, like, sort of, you know, was visibly concerned whenever they were around a homeless person or walked past them or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, that's interesting," and wrote a song from that perspective.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are, so the two songs towards the start of this album that are obviously, I would argue are good NOFX songs. Like you've got Filthy Philanthropist and Bleeding Heart Disease that are kind of, iconic NOFX songs.
Yeah.
And this is just my personal opinion. They're like two of my least favorite, most favorite NOFX songs.
Right.
They're going to appear in your top 20 NOFX songs of all time, but like for me, they're going to appear quite low down in the list.
Right. I don't know if they'd even feature in my top 20 personally, but I do like them. Yeah, I guess so. It's strange because, like, Release the Hostages, I remember the bass intro sounding a bit like Shower Days.
Yeah.
And from that, it's just vanished from my mind.
Yeah, I don't remember Release the Hostages, but maybe that's, just I was in recovery from Hot Dog in a Hallway.
I mean, yeah, it's strange because, a lot of these songs are quite long for NOFX. We're talking over 3 minutes for a lot of these songs. And Hot Dog in the Hallway isn't even in the top 5 longest, but it feels long.
I think you make a really good point about how it feels like a slow album. Like there are more mid-tempo songs than we've been getting from NOFX at this point in their career.
Yeah, between Hot Dog in a Hallway and Love Story.
Yeah.
Those two are very slow. The guitars are very heavy and sort of, very compressy, chuggy in a lot of it. And also the vocals are very low in the mix for a lot of it. So you can't, for something like Hot Dog in a Hallway, where you're supposed to be hearing all of the brilliant fat jokes, you can't. I don't know whether that's an act of last minute cowardice or just how they wanted it to sound. I don't know.
Yeah, I just get the overwhelming feeling with this album that, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I kind of feel like they made Punk in Drublic. It was a huge success. And then they were like trying to almost undermine their own success by like not doing more of the same and not being like, right, we found our sound, but almost like retreating back into their like early work, almost to like annoy people that do like what they make.
I don't know. I don't believe that NOFX makes anything that they don't like or that Mike doesn't sign off on. I don't think that they would. I think they might lean into a thing that they do like that they know will be less appealing. Like broad with less broad appeal, perhaps, but that's pure speculation on my part.
Or like my other feeling was like, is this a point in their career where like, I don't know, like they're not enjoying touring as much, or there's just something that they're kind of like lost a little love for, because this doesn't feel as loved as their previous albums. There doesn't seem like there's as much, on production side, it doesn't feel like there's as much consideration as there have been, particularly with their most recent works to this. I mean, Punk in Drublic is fantastic, and I feel like almost from like White Trash, they're making like a big step forward in terms of songwriting and arrangements, and I feel like this is a bit of a step back from that.
I see what you mean. I
like if this came after Ribbed, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
I know what you mean. It feels like if they went from Ribs to this through to Punk and Drublic, there'd be a sort of a narrative sense, a through line that was on a sort of a permanent uplift, if you like, or not even a permanent uplift in the sense of quality, but a through line of where things go. It is a very strange album. Let's just pause a little bit just to go into some of the details and stuff. This is produced by Ryan Green, who produced Punk in Drublic and I believe produced So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes. So it's not even like they switched out producer and had anything different going on. So it's interesting. It was recorded in October 95. Beg your pardon. And released the 31st of January 1996. So it's actually got quite a slightly faster than usual turnaround. I believe that this is the album that Mike said he was writing in the wrong key. He was writing a lot of songs in G, and he doesn't sing well in G.
Okay, yeah.
Because a lot of the vocal performances are kind of, I don't know, a little bit different to usual.
Well, I think maybe that's a part of what is confusing me, because now I think about it, yeah, it is like the vocals don't sound as... he doesn't sound as present. He doesn't sound as into it.
Yeah. There's a lot of da, 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 da. Yeah, love story and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I know Love Story does go fast at the end, but it feels like it takes forever to get there. It's a very strange thing. There's a few. Okay, so it was released. It got to number 63 in the Billboard 200. The first NOFX album to chart in the Billboard 200.
Oh, wow.
Yep. In Austria, it got to number 20, whereas in Sweden and Finland, it got to number 13.
Brilliant.
So well done, lads. Razor's Edge Studio in San Francisco. And the music has been complimented as melodic, but the album has been favorably compared to Ribbed. But tracks like Hobophobic and Freedom Like a Shopping Cart have been lauded for their witty titles. They've also been criticised for being overly cynical. August 8th, that track towards the end.
Which I actually, towards the end of the album, there's a few album tracks that I think are, I mean, they are, like they don't stand out amongst their wider back catalogue. But as far as album tracks go, I think they're okay. I think that August 8th is okay. I think Drop the World is okay. I think The Black and White is okay.
Yes, I like those ones as well. Let me just look at my thing. Yeah, Drop the World. Drop the World sounds a lot like Dying Degree.
Yeah.
I get a lot of Dying Degree. The Black and White's got some like liberal animation vibes on it for me.
Yeah.
Just in the sort of the musical build rather than anything particularly sonically, more in like the arrangement and stuff like that. That,
like a lot
hardcore thing.
A lot of these songs don't seem to stand on their own legs. As in, a lot of these songs sound like other NOFX songs that I prefer.
We might be skirting around the dreadful music criticism term derivative. Is that what we're doing?
Maybe.
It feels like it, doesn't it? And I don't know if I even fully agree with that. I just don't know if there's a better term.
And also, I want to be super clear. Like, I am comparing this NOFX album to other NOFX albums. I'm not comparing them to music in general. They're still my favorite band, and I'd still take listening to this album over a lot of albums by other artists.
Sure.
But I think just where it sits in their back catalogue, for me, it's just not a favourable listen.
Yes, because August 8th is about the death of Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. And that's why he's happy about it being the 8th of August, because that's when Jerry Garcia died, and all the hippies crying. And at the end, he says, "Poor Jeff, poor Timmy Turtle," because they were fans of Grateful Dead. And then it turned out he actually died on the 9th of August. So pretty good. Which is very funny. The first half of the Black and White is concerned with a repressed homosexual male living in small town USA.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think a lot of people were asking why Mike writes so much about lesbians and not gay men. And he's like, well, I did once, because the black and white is two different stories in the same song about, getting out of wherever it is. Which he likes. He's fond of that, because Liza and Louise is about that as well. And, people who break out of a situation that is bad for them. We all love that. We support their journey. Liza is on this one as well.
Yeah, not a song that sticks in my head, unfortunately.
No, it's about Liza. She leaves her butch phase and enters her dom phase. The student becomes the master. Mistress. So,
and like, if there is one thing that I do appreciate of a NOFX album, and it is here, is like that sort of the storytelling of queer lives, and you do get that here, obviously, with the Black and White, with Liza, and that, like that's always nice, that's always welcome.
Yeah, you don't get that on a Bad Religion album unless the queer life in general was also a particle physicist or something.
I remembered something about Bad Religion the other day. So like, when you first listen to a band, like the first song you listen of that band can sometimes colour your perception of that band.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know how like all Bad Religion songs sound quite similar?
There is yeah. I'm a big fan of Bad Religion, but yes, they definitely have a sound.
They have a sound.
Sure.
Not, I'm not criticizing that. But what I think is quite interesting is the first ever Bad Religion song I heard is the one Bad Religion single that doesn't sound like their other stuff. If anything, it sounds quite mainstream and generic. So the first Bad Religion song I ever heard was Broken.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that's just, it just sounds like a rock song. Like that could be the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, it's, and if you ignore the harmonies, which sound, that's the bit that makes you go, is that Bad Religion?
Because it's mid-tempo Bad Religion, which you don't get often.
No. Sometimes they do. They always have one or two little sort of more ploddy, chuggy songs, but normally it's a lot faster. But yeah, well, because that was a single that was on like MTV and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I saw it on like Kerrang. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
the first time I ever heard Bad Religion, I was just thinking the other day, I was like, what a strange introduction into Bad Religion.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because even something like Stranger Than Fiction, which came off their major label album, Stranger Than Fiction, and it's great. I really like it, but it's got that sort of Motown mod beat, that and it's like, and it's not very fast. It's it's a very strange one compared to like when they released the title track of True North. I'm like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. You hear that and you go, well, yeah, obviously. So yeah, but I think oh god, when we deviate and talk about another band loads because we're not really interested in what we're supposed to be talking about. I think that might have happened. But I was going to say, yeah, it's nice to see the second part of Liza, because it'll be 2 albums time before we get to hear about Louise.
Yeah.
Spoilers, she's still up to the same stuff. We should talk about the artwork because you know, it's called Heavy Petting Zoo, and it's a guy fingering a sheep on the front.
And you know what? I quite like the album artwork. You know, you see this album artwork, and you know it's a NOFX album. I know it says NOFX on it.
It does say it, but yeah.
I do think that's in keeping with their whole vibe. I don't think this album artwork looks out of place amongst the rest of their catalog.
No, the Eating Lamb variant is the 69 variant, which is, if anything, much more explicit.
But you know, like they are funny. They are humorous.
Sure. Yep. By an artist called Mark DeSalvo. I'm just looking at his website, and he's got some prints for sale, including the Heavy Petting Zoo and Eating Lamb. Oh, you can get Heavy Petting Zoo version, $350 for a print.
Wow.
Or Eating Lamb, $100. He's done some artwork for Pulley, Miss Vincent. There's one of Matt Skiba with Warbrain written over his eyes, which is one of my favourite Alkaline Trio songs, which is cool. There's a postcard set you can get for $25. Should be all of those ones. It's a rather nice one of Mike. Fat Mike Gets Strung Out, which is Fat Mike running a looks like he's shooting up heroin, but he's running a violin bow over his wrists, and there are F holes tattooed on his arm. I don't know, but yeah. So it looks good. He's done some really, really good stuff. Oh, he did Let's Talk About Feelings by Lagwagon, Making Friends, No Use for a Name, Adolescence. So he did the cover of Survival of the Fattest, the Flip Sides, Teen Idols. God, he's done loads. Mad Caddies. The one of the two blokes looking at the comic book or newspaper, whatever one that is. I can't read it, it's this small. Oh, he's done loads. Good for him. So Mark DeSalvo, check out his stuff. If you really get a kick out of the Heavy Petting Zoo cover, then do that. Hello everyone, Eddie here. Red and I hope you're enjoying our show. If you have been and would like to help us make it a little more easily, then you can donate to us at our Ko-fi page, which is ko-fi.com/punkrockelite, or you can look in the show notes for our link tree. If you can't help us financially, we totally understand, but would love it if you spread the word to other people who would like this podcast. We thank you for your continued support. We massively appreciate it. Back to the show. Let me see here. All Music, the rating is 3 stars. Spin gave it 7 out of 10.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just, hey, look, and I do admit this, I'm listening to this in 2023. Yep. I'm listening to this without the context of 1996.
Sure.
So, you know, I do think a bit of it's going to get lost in translation. Maybe I should have listened to more stuff that was coming out around this time so that I could kind of put it into a context for myself.
Maybe a cultural context would help. I mean, it's weird because when I first heard NOFX, this would have been the most recent full-length release.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know anyone who had a copy of this one. People are Punk and Droblick, and then we were all very excited when So Long came out, and I think we all bought that. And it was what it was, getting ahead of ourselves. But at the time, I don't really know, because I think, if you think about it, I guess this must have been roughly around the time of Insomniac.
Yeah.
Which is a lot darker and a slower sort of vibe all around. So I don't know. I mean, they're not That's 2 albums from roughly this period, so it's hardly a good litmus test. But it's I honestly can't say, because I find it quite a confusing album, and you can't really get much out of them. Like, there was a Q&A somewhere that said, why does Heavy Petting Zoo sound so different to all your other albums? And the answer was because it was recorded in the Soviet Union. I'm like, there wasn't one in 1996. So, it's like they're just, really, really skirting the question.
One thing that stands out to me from this, and I don't know if other people have had the same takeaway from it, but like, Fat Mike is the only member that stands out for me on this album. I can usually, I can hear Melvin, and I can usually, particularly on the recent albums, very much hear Hefe's influence.
Yeah.
And, Sandin's drums are normally, I think, a little bit higher in the mix.
Yeah.
But here I feel like I'm just getting Mike, and it feels like these songs haven't been written in collaboration like a lot of his work sometimes is. I just feel like I'm just getting Mike on this album.
Yeah, and a sort of maybe a half-hearted Mike.
Yeah,
I don't know if because they started recording this in '95, and so Punk and Droblik came out in July '94. After that, they put out I Heard They Suck Live in August '95, NOFX a bit later. When was that out?
June 95.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so they were sort of riding the relative success, and I don't know whether doing a lot of stuff. Maybe they were touring a lot. Maybe there wasn't, jumping on the sort of let's ride this wave, this 1994 wave. Dookie has meant that we're all slightly more in demand. Let's ride this wave a little bit, and maybe just the songwriting time wasn't maybe there. I don't know.
Yeah, and that would make a lot of sense to me.
It would. I wouldn't like to say that was definitive, because I simply don't know. But yeah.
It just, to me, like it feels more like their earlier arrangements when, Mike is the majorative songwriter. Whereas, Punk and Droblik feels so collaborative between all of the artists in the band.
They're all doing the best thing that they do.
Yeah.
At the best of the ability that they have at that time, all pointing in the same direction. Whereas sort of like the sort of the clean, like, guitar picking in like Hot Dog in a Hallway that sounds very sort of thin and dreary. And I don't know, tonally, I think production wise it sort of misses the mark for me quite a lot, particularly in the mix. I'm like, what are you doing to Sandin's drums? They're barely that, some of the songs, they feel very absent. The guitars sound super thick and chunky in a way that sort of gets in the way. I don't know. It's it's weird to feel
when you've established the signature sound in Punk and Droblik.
Yeah.
Pull back from that. And I wonder, is that got anything to do with, I know you said like how there was a Propaganda album around here that was, the definitive Fat sound. And I wonder if they're trying to back away from that a little bit here.
That's very possible. They might have thought a lot about, because I'm sure there was a Lagwagon album, probably a No Use for a Name album around these times, maybe, that would have had that production, would have had that sort of almost clicky kick and all that kind of stuff. There was a period where it felt like there was very little bottom end in that kind of punk. It was a very shrill, it cut through. It probably sounded great on shitty little headphones that skateboarders wear, whereas but that's skateboarding kids in the 90s, they weren't going to have expensive shit because they were on skateboards. They kept falling off. You just have the cheapest pair you could afford, so you had some tunes while you were skating around. And It was. It's funny actually. A little side note. Talking to Owen yesterday when we were fixing his guitar, and he was like, "You off to NOFX?" I'm like, "Of course, mate." He's like, "Oh, cool, yeah." No, he's off to see Pulp in Bridlington because Owen walks in several worlds. And he was saying we were just talking about it. He said, "Yeah," because Owen went to LA with his job a couple of times, and he said, "Like, yeah, Venice Beach is weird, but it's like all the punks walking around, and it's like they're just like sort of slightly slacker athletes." In America, they're all like surfers and shit. It's like, oh, I've just been surfing for 6 hours. I'm like, what? Why? It's like, and so these sort of, these skateboarders doing sort of massive tricks and and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's not really like the punks we were when we were younger. We're mainly looking for somewhere that people in our village wouldn't see us doing big lungs of dirty resin. So I'm not saying we're purer, but our lungs certainly hurt anyway. They've got the lung capacity, we don't. But yeah, so it feels like I'm more down on this album than Liberal Animation or anything like that. But it's sort of, I don't know, it feels sort of rushed.
Yeah, that is a fair assertion, I think. Also, I wonder, because I'm always amazed at, like, this is NOFX really like in the midst of their ascension, I suppose.
Yeah.
And what I think is quite interesting is like this is alongside, like the grunge boom, which
I don't know. Kurt Cobain was dead by this point.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. But grunge, I think, is still going pretty strong, right? In 96?
Maybe by 96. I think it was hanging on in there.
I mean, it's certainly there in Hot Dog in a Hallway.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. Yeah, it's got the quiet, loud, quiet and dynamic.
I just wonder whether there is any, like, pressure for them to sound a bit grungy or to like move away from punk, because I mean nowadays I do kind of see Nirvana as a punk band, but there was definitely a time when it was almost argued that this was like brand new music from a genre that had never been heard before, even though it was kind of hardcore. But
yeah, they liked their punk a bit sort of slower, a bit more like Stooges, MC5 the kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And it was like those kind of bands are actually quite slow by modern standards. If you listen to Nevermind the Bollocks now, it's like this is all sort of fairly mid-set because you can pogo to it.
Yeah.
You can't pogo to, American hardcore because otherwise it turns into an aerobics class. It's like, but like you listen to the Teenage Kicks by the Undertones, which is like the perfect pogoing speed.
Yeah.
Now it seems sort of meander. Still great. I enjoy it, and nothing like that. But at the time, people were like, "What is this racket?" And now it's on Radio 2. It's like, come on. So I guess maybe that was it. There's something that I'm quite frustrated talking about this album because I can't quite express what I mean about most of it.
I feel like there is some context that is missing. There is something that went on in the recording or songwriting process that they haven't made public. Because I mean, I certainly haven't been able to find anything online where they have definitively explained why this album doesn't quite sound like their other work. But I feel like something has happened. And my best guess would be that they were so busy touring that they just didn't have as much time for songwriting.
Very possibly. I mean, the only song they play off of this that I've seen is Hobophobic.
Also, when is do you know the period of time when Smelly's on heroin?
I do. The last album he recorded on heroin was White Trash.
Oh, okay.
He went into rehab the day after recording.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because they were like, look, you're getting straight after this, or you're out the band. But, you know, we are going to record this album with you to show that I think it was an idea of, look, we're going to have you on the album because we want you in the band. But if you can't be clean, then you can't carry on. So basically made the album day after, went off to some rehab facility in the desert, and has been sober ever since.
Wow.
So why?
Well, you know, just obviously we were talking about how Sandin's drums sit lower in the mix this time round, and I wondered if there was some like personal issue behind the scenes that had led to, you know, it not sounding as good as Punk and
I
Chocolate.
don't think so, because all of the actual musical performances are pretty tight, and he was tight when he was on heroin anyway. But you know, there was it's not really, for me, it's not really in the performances so much. Like everything they're playing it absolutely bang on.
Yeah.
For what it is. It's more the musical choices rather than the music and the arrangement and that kind of thing that just sort of, because at no point have they ever gone back and done anything particularly similar to this.
Yeah, true.
You know, I can't really think of anything. I can't think of anything where we go, wow, someone's drinking deeply from the fountain of heavy petting zoo on this one, right?
I wonder if, bearing in mind, I haven't listened to single album and double album all the way through in a long time. So I don't know. I mean, have you found any similarities there? Because I know a lot of people are quite negative about those two albums.
I think, as I recall, there was an interview I watched where Mike said that all of these songs were very overthought on Heavy Petting Zoo. Yeah. Wow. So they sort of, and I don't know if that's because there wasn't as much confidence in the songs themselves, so they got sort of poured over a lot. But he said that he gave himself 20 minutes each to write each of the songs on So Long, presumably without lyrics. But you know, the music and melody and stuff, coming up with that for So Long, 20 minutes each. I don't know how rigidly he stuck to it, but the idea was to not overthink them, was to come up with the thing, sounds good, okay, bang, put that down, that's a song, next. And he said that with single and double album, every song on that was overthought a lot because they had so much time. They were supposed to release it as a double album before lockdown, and then they just didn't. But he had a lot of time, and he had all the people living in his commune that were producing it with him and stuff. Baz the Frenchman, and I've forgotten his name, but he was in Old Man Markley. John
Markley.
I wish that would have been so easy, but yes, John of Old Man Markley, and so I think, with stuff like that, he was like using MIDI drums to do like little demos, and then going, Smelly, play this, and Smelly's like, I don't know what, you can't play that, and all this kind of stuff. So he had a sort of a different approach to songwriting, and it was very overthought, and that might be why people are, and that's why I think he's so enthused about single and double album. Mike speaks about those two records so highly. He's so excited about it because he's become quite focused on songwriting.
Yeah, he probably enjoyed the process.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh, listen to that. Do you hear that example of songwriting? And I sort of feel that if you can hear something as a brilliant example of songwriting first and foremost, I don't know if that's a brilliant example of songwriting. Do you get, like, I spoke to someone years ago who said, have you seen the new James Bond film? And obviously I said no. And he said, I barely remember the film because I was just enraptured by what a remarkable example of filmmaking it was. I go, well, in that case, it wasn't a remarkable example of filmmaking, was it? Because you were sat there going, oh, that dissolve. Oh, mwah. It's like, fuck off. It's sort of, I don't know. There's something I find very. It's like, okay, yeah, anything can be an exercise, but it's like, I mean, Red and I have both done improv because, we're not good people. But, there are certain games in short form improv where you're like, why is that group doing that in front of an audience? That's a warm up game for not, you go, oh, we're going to show this to people who've paid money. Like, fuck you. Warm up on your own time and do games that are good.
You know what you know what improv is?
I wish I knew.
Improv is the scar of comedy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mate, there's literally a Tumblr post called Scar Group or Improv Group.
Brilliant.
It's very difficult. Checkerboards give it away sometimes, but not always. A lot of white guys, a lot of them in flip-flops, with their arms stretched out, with big grins on their faces, and it's like, these could easily be called not likely, but improbable, or they could have supported Real Big Fish once in their hometown. It's like, it's either or.
Because ska is great when you do it a little bit. Like, I love that NOFX have a couple ska songs on a record.
Yeah.
And it's the same, when comedians do a little bit of improv, we love it. When comedians only do improv, we want our money back.
Yeah. I think, although sometimes you find people who sort of do it in quite an aggressive, abrasive way, and you go, oh, okay, steady on, like Operation Ivy or Suicide Machines, where you're like, whoa! And you go, but they're very rare. When you sort of go, fucking hell, they're actually doing something for, they don't fuck around, they don't mess around with it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I think we go back to our dear friend Robin Leach, the major key and minor key.
Yes.
I've always endeavoured to be a minor key improviser. I'm going to start using.
Credit where credit's due.
Oh.
I do think there's a banger on this album.
Your hot take is cooling down, Red. I can see it. Go on.
What's the Matter with Kids Today?
Sure.
Is a NOFX classic.
Yeah. That is a good one.
It's unfortunately the only NOFX classic on this album.
I quite like Whatever Dee Dee Wants.
I personally don't enjoy that.
Whatever Dee Dee Wants is a bit of a favourite for some people because it was on a Punkorama compilation. Okay. A strange one to donate, but fine. I like the way the harmonies blend around one another, but if that was the only song on that album that sounded like it, like Eat the Meek on So Long, we're like, there's nothing else that sounds like Eat the Meek, because that's essentially, it's more of a reggae song than a ska song. It's not that up-tempo, it's, and all that kind of thing. You'd be like, yeah, all right. Oh, that's an interesting little thing they threw in there. And you'd go, oh, that's kind of fun. And it breaks it up a bit. But yeah, it's a slow record, even when it's fast.
And what's the deal with, you've come from Punk in Drublic, which has a lot of silly voices on, and now very much an album without silly voices, specifically without El Jefe's silly voices, which are the best of the silly voices.
They are. I don't mind a lack of silly voices, particularly. Maybe they thought 3 on one album, we can go without one of them, but yeah,
if you turn around and told me, oh, this is Jefe's first album with the band, I'd probably believe you. Like how we've spoke previously on the podcast about how quick El Jefe just fits into the band and how, he really shines through.
Yeah.
He does amazing work on those first couple albums with NOFX. But here, I can't hear him. I can obviously hear guitars.
Yeah.
I can hear people playing music well, but I can't hear his distinctive influence where I can on their previous two albums.
There's a couple of bits of trumpet on this.
Yeah,
There's
his trumpet
here and there
work is good.
Yep, a little bit here and there, more than on Punk and Drublick, to be fair.
Yeah.
But there's something, the guitar parts sound generic. They sound like they could have been played by anybody. To me, they don't have the personality. I think that's what it might be missing. It might be missing the personality of NOFX, because a lot of Mike's vocals sound kind of restrained. And that's partly because he's singing in the wrong key for himself to be able to, give it some. Yeah, it's really, really odd. The more I try and it's like digging a hole in the rain. The more I try to excavate what I mean, the more it gets filled in by more stuff. I don't know. I'm finding it quite hard to talk about. Not emotionally, just intellectually. I'm fine talking about it, guys. I can talk about it. It's fine.
It almost feels like, earlier in their career where they have, there are other guitarists who are just a little bit less unique and they stand out less. It feels like one of those. Like, this feels like Kid Wilder could be on this.
Yeah, it does. It feels like anyone could be on it.
Yeah,
it's interesting because right. Okay, I've just had a quick look ahead, and I think this is quite telling, right? The next thing they released in August of 96, recorded in April of 96, was the EP Fuck the Kids.
Right, yeah.
And the first line, it says, all the tracks were recorded in one day over the course of about 4 hours. Fat Mike had written the songs, but none of the other band members knew them. He'd teach the band the song, they'd record it, keeping the first take where they managed to make it through the whole song and move on. And on it, you've got Fuck the Kids, I'm Telling Tim, Murder the Government, a few absolute Stone Cold classics on here.
Yeah.
And so we might have a look at Fuck the Kids before we do So Long. Not a whole, because there's like 13 songs and it takes 10 minutes to listen to.
We could do Fuck the Kids and NOFX.
Oh, yeah. Because that was, before. Well, that's only 2 songs as well.
But then that's 15 tracks.
It's 15 tracks, I guess, yeah.
That's more than Heavy Petting Zoo.
Well, yeah, no, that would be a better album than Heavy Petting Zoo, personally. But maybe that'll just be a little mini-sode just to bridge before we do So Long, because I'm putting it so long off because there's only so many times I can go, love that one, brilliant. So, but yeah. Anyway, any final thoughts on Heavy Petting Zoo?
I am a little bit disappointed, but that's only because I've had such fun listening to every NoFX album up until this point. I know that this album, a lot of people are going to have much more love for this album than myself. And that makes so much sense because I wasn't listening to NoFX when this album came out. And I think the context of when it was released would help me understand the album a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stand up to, I think, the quality of their other work, and particularly their other most recent work in Punk and Drublick and White Trash, which I think is some of their better albums.
Yeah. I think I think initially the problem I had with this album was the production. I found it difficult to listen to just for my own sonic tastes. But even when I can listen to records that are produced badly.
Yeah.
But the songs are good enough that you can just go, that is a great song. And I don't find as many great songs once you've unpacked the production on this. And I'd love to know more why. I think I've actually seen some of the places they're going. They're playing Heavy Petting Zoo.
Yeah, but I think more so in Europe.
Well, Finland and Sweden, if they go there, I imagine it got to number 13. So I don't think they are going there. But yeah, I think so. I don't know. Maybe they're wanting to give everything. Maybe they're just going, look, this is warts and all. This is part of our 40 years. And it is part of their 40 years.
Yeah.
You can't just dismiss it because it's there. And it's there for a reason. We just don't know what those reasons are.
Yeah.
Or the reasons to us aren't apparent. I don't want to be totally down on this because I think it's interesting if kind of inaccessible. And I don't know if that's the reason. Inaccessibility. It seems a step too far to make a whole release. I mean, Epitaph signed off on it. They were happy for it to go out.
I mean, it's almost like, obviously there was like a boom from Dookie around this point. Are they trying to be like, oh, like, yeah, but we're the real punks.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Radio play, or we're not trying to go for mainstream, and they've,
yeah,
tried to go a bit more down the alternative route to a fault.
Yeah, I think so. It's a difficult one. I find it hard to fully understand. So maybe I'll stop trying. Yeah, but okay. So what are your highlights?
I obviously, Filthy Phil is good. I think Bleeding Heart Disease is good. What's the Matter with Kids Today?
Yeah.
And then I do enjoy a few album tracks towards the end. The Black and White, August 8th, Drop the World.
Yeah.
But yeah, like nothing. There's normally a little surprise for me on a NOFX album where there's like an album track that I haven't heard before that's like really is really good, and I really enjoy it. And I don't think I get that experience here, sadly.
Yeah, I think I agree. Filthy Phil. I like Freedom like a shopping cart. I think it builds nicely, which shows I'm not just opposed to the slower ones. Bleeding Heart Disease, great. Black and White, Drop the World. Some top stuff. Then Hot Dog in a Hallway and Love Story, just like the antithesis of that. They're very dirgy.
There's something about Love Story that so I got Love Story mixed up, and I briefly, when the song came up, I was like, oh great, I love this one, because I'd got it mixed up with Falling in Love. Which is a brilliant NOFX track.
Oh yeah.
And then halfway through Love Story and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But that's just unfortunate, isn't it, that I'm comparing it to one of their better songs.
It's weird. There's actually a lot of very good harmony work on this album.
Yeah.
Like possibly certainly more than Punk and Drublick.
Mm-hmm.
You got Linoleum and stuff like that, but there's not, and Don't Call Me White, but there's no harmonies on Laurie Myers.
Yeah.
There's no harmonies on a lot of them. It's just Mike's voice by himself, which, I mean, well, some people have a problem with. I don't have a problem with, but they are. But on this one, they're really leaning on the harmonies.
Not much Mel yell from that I can recall.
Virtually none, from what I can tell, which is a crime. So it's
What? I'd be really interested, actually. Look, I'm not sat here thinking that, I know best and that my opinion is the only opinion. I would love to know why people like this. What stands out. What makes this like one of the better NoFX albums for them? So like, if you do have any maybe you just want to throw things at me. I understand.
Yeah.
But email us. Let us know why it is that this, why you have a special spot for this album, because I'd love to know.
Well, Niall from the Midlife Punk podcast chose it as his favorite album, and and it's weird. It's like I love the fact that this is someone's favorite NoFX album.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the fact that this is a lot of people's favorite. It's bound to be. Just numbers game, isn't it? And so that means that it is transcended music and become something, because your favorite album is never about the songs on it. It's about your relationship with the songs on it. Let's be
my guess
honest. And I'm pleased that this is the soundtrack to important stuff for people.
Yeah.
No.
And my guess would be, if this is your favorite album, it's probably because to you it sounds like a more raw, more authentic NoFX. It does sound DIY. It does sound like it was recorded in a garage. But it's later in their career, so like they are better songwriters than they were on Liberal Animation. So maybe it's that. And I get that.
I mean, certainly, even with Mike's handicapping himself with the key that he's written a lot of these songs in, still a better vocal performance than the first 2-3 albums.
Yeah, absolutely.
So far and away. So straight up, he can actually harmonize, or he can actually sing well enough for someone to harmonize with him consistently. Good. That's fine. Maintains the character of his voice. It sounds like him. It sounds like him on a less than ideal day, but it does sound like him. So there is something, but it's just not. It's not quintessential NoFX for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, if you do like it, punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know, because we do want to know. We're not dismissing you if this is your favorite.
Absolutely,
it's just
not.
Definitely not going to be in our top 10 NoFX albums. It can sit on the shelf with the first 3, as far as I'm concerned. The first 2. Rib's got some shit on it anyway. Some good shit. Right, well, we're just going to go into hiding, so we'll see you in the outro. Well, there we go. That was... can't believe what they were saying about it.
I know. I think they've been really unfair. I think it's one of my favourites.
I think it's the only NoFX album.
Yeah, well, sometimes I just wake up and I just put Hobophobic on repeat. Yeah. And I just don't listen to another song all day.
And that is the day. That is that 1 minute, 60 times an hour. I mean, come on. Is there anything better? No. All right. Well, we're just being the most diplomatic of punk rock podcasts, as is our position currently. So yeah, good. Well, I think we've got some. I don't know. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves in the schedule again, so I don't know who we've got coming up. We may be about to interview Will Hodgson. We may have interviewed them already. All of these things we just don't know. So. You got anything coming up? Well, we know what we got coming up tomorrow, but
we've got NoFX, baby.
We've got NoFX. Hopefully, last minute change. They'll drop Punk and Droblick and do Heavy Petting Zoo instead. But yeah, basically, what it means is they'll be currently in a rehearsal space in Leeds, rehearsing right now as we record this.
Crazy to think that,
isn't that? That's mad. So, yep, we. It's going to be very strange. So we'll see you and Sully and some other people. There's a couple of people on Instagram who've said that they're coming as well. So, there's no point shouting out for it now. Well, because it's long gone now. This is long in the past. You'll know how we feel about this by now. So we've got this, and then on Sunday we're going to be recording our debrief.
Yeah.
So if you've heard that, you'll know how it went. Fingers crossed it was good, or this is going to sound like a really sort of prophetic and unpleasant episode. But anything else you got coming up, Red? Any public appearances people
I'm
should know
doing
about?
a gig tomorrow. No, tonight. Fuck. In York.
Tomorrow?
Well, I mean, that's in the past now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few little stand-up gigs here and there.
Oh, is that for Greavesy?
Yeah. For Alistair Greaves. It was a fantastic comedy promoter based in York.
Burning Duck.
Yeah, Burning Duck Comedy Club. Check it out if you are local to the York area. He runs some fantastic stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Well, that's cool. Next thing I've got to look forward to after this is a wedding of a friend of mine from university. So I'm going to let them know if it doesn't match up to one of my absolute favourite bands doing their farewell tour. It's an unnecessary comparison, isn't it? Anyway, yeah. Do get in touch with us. punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know what we can do to cheer up, because I don't like being so down on NOFX. It seems unnecessary and unkind, but the ears want what they want, I suppose.
And to be fair to us, like, this is the first time where we've been a little bit hard on an album. Like, we've loved everything so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Liberal Animation, if you listen to that back, it does sound a bit like we've taken a drawing from our child and put it on the fridge. Did you do this? Really? Oh, it's very good. Well, I know where this is going. Oh, we can all see it there. But they were, they were 10 years younger when they recorded that. So
yeah, absolutely.
But as Tom from the Midlife Punk podcast pointed out, he goes, that could have been it for them. Imagine if they'd only released Liberal Animation, would we be talking about them? And there's a very good chance. No.
Really good point.
So, if they genuinely wanted to make that album, I'm glad they did. Because I'm always glad when someone makes the thing they genuinely want to make.
Yeah.
Fuck my diplomacy. Anyway, thanks so much, Red.
No problem. Thank you, Eddie.
I'm glad you were here. I didn't want to do this alone.
It's like a support group.
Oh, it's we've already established that's what this is. This podcast is a support group, and we'll need it after tomorrow. So, yeah. All right, then. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Punk Rock Elite. It was a Pick Scraped and Fruitcake co-production by Eddie French and Red Redmond. If you're not following us on Instagram or subscribed to the podcast, please do. The main theme and production was done by Eddie French. Please contact us at punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.